Hey Dragons, I'm back here to do my part one of my July reading wrap up. I definitely read the most in July. It is my full month off that I don't actually travel anywhere. Technically I did travel, but I traveled in June and I don't do anything major, so I definitely think I read the most in July just because I have the most time home. I'm kind of re-getting myself in order, and then August is just busy. It's my birthday, I'm traveling, and it's my last month before I go back to work, so it just has a lot happening in August. But I did read a lot and I want to do a mini wrap up, or this video is going to be about an hour long. So we're going to do my stats, and I'm going to talk about the books that I've read and anything that popped up, why I chose them if I remember. A lot of these were on my TBR, but some of them were not. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a 2-month TBR for the summer, and I'm just going to kind of leave the books on there because I love using my spinner wheels as of late, and they've just been a little bit taking over my life a little bit. So I'm definitely going to go back to doing that, and there is a bunch of stuff I want to do in August, so we will get there. But I have read 12 books so far and total pages read was 4,848 pages. Average page per day was 156, which is definitely elevated what I like to see. I like to read about 200 pages a day, and I've honestly been doing that. I've been reading a lot every day. My most read genre is romance. I read 3 books for Thrive, 4 from authors I read, and I hauled 3 books. I think that might be a little bit off, but I always do it at the end. I had 2 5-star, 1 4.5 stars, 7 4 stars, 2 3.5 stars, for an average rating of 4.13. I read 12 new releases. I think everything I read this year was a new release between ALA picks and NetGalley holds. Yeah. I read 5 physical, 5 on audio, and 2 ebooks. I started 4 series. I continued in 1. I completed 0. I read 6 standalone and 2 companion. I read 1 middle grade, 3 young adult, 8 adult, and then I had read 4 arcs, 0 just from Audible. I did read books on Audible, but I think I'm reading them now. 3 from the library, 2 from NetGalley, 3 owned. I read 1 fantasy, 4 romance, 3 fantasy romance, 1 manga or graphic novel, 3 thrillers. I don't know how to classify one of them, so I put it down as a thriller. And yeah, that is where we are at. So let's get into the books that I read. I actually read 120 books this year so far, so that's actually a pretty good stat for me as well. I normally reach about 100 towards the end of the year, at work anyway, and that's kind of what I did as well this year. Okay, so the first book that I read was one of my ALA arcs, and that is Ariel of the Maroon Witches by Suma Beck. I gave this book 3.75 stars. I think if you like action adventure stories and you are a little kid, I think that you would like this. It gave me Worst Witch meets Black Panther vibes. I love the representation and I like the quick pacedness of it. It was a very, very quick read, but I didn't feel that connected to the characters. I am going to save this and I'm going to put this in my classroom. I'm going to have a couple of stacks here so I remember where to put them. But I like this. I think that this was a fun, quick read, very, very witchy, very, very fall vibes. But if you like fast-paced adventure stories like Marvel and DC, I think that this would be a good book for you. And then the next book that I read was Crash Course by Piper Lawson. I had a week where I was just reading very, very quickly because I was so exhausted. So I gave this book 4 stars. So basically this is a contemporary romance about a main character whose dad, I will say there was a little bit of suspense in this story, but a dash of it, so I wouldn't classify this as romantic suspense. But basically you have a main character and she kind of is a mechanic, and she kind of gets invited to this elite driving school to be a mechanic, and she winds up falling for 2 brothers. That's all I'm going to say. It was very, very quick. This formatting of this arc was so weird, so I really wanted to read it quicker. I met her when I was at Comic-Con. That's where I got this one. But I liked it. I thought it was a quick read. I definitely would prefer to listen to the story, but I had the arc and I wanted to make my way through it. But I enjoyed it. It was a fun read. Elevated spice, obviously. But I like the school setting. I like both the characters that we met. I think that it's very obvious who's going to get the next book. And I'm really excited to keep going with this series. But yeah, this was a fun one. Very sports romancy. But I had a fun time with it and gave it 3.75 stars. And then the next book that I listened to was actually Change of Plans by Sarah Dessen. This is the one that I went to ALA to get because I met her. She was lovely. This will be one that I keep. And this was just a really, really fun contemporary romance for kids. Like, I like Sarah Dessen. I think she does self-discovery and all her stories so well. So this follows a famous doctor named Finley. Her mom and her dad are divorced. Her mom is very, very type A. Her mom plans to take her to New York City for a week in the summer. Things don't go according to plan, and they have to go and settle the house that is being sold at a lake house that she's never been to and kind of reconnect with her family that she's never really met. And things gonna go from there. There's also some secrets that get revealed. It's a very big self-discovery story about Finley overall. There's a dash of a romance, and I had a fun time with this one as well. There was a save the thing in here, which I really did like. There was also a lot of elements about family dynamics and, like, you know, the complicated relationship between families. There was a romance here, and I really had a fun time with this book. I gave this book 4 stars, and I'm so happy that I listened to it. And the next book that I read, I think I DNF one. I DNF'd The Hocus Pocus Handbook by Anne Aguirre, so I'll talk about this briefly. I did wind up DNFing this. I wasn't enjoying this book, to be very honest. I was kind of struggling, so I decided to put it down. I love this cover, but I really think I need to listen to this book, and this book won't be out until September, so that is why I did DNF this book. But that is where we are with that. So. And the next book I picked up was Of Venom and Vengeance by Michaela Bridge. This is a companion book to Of Flames and Fury. I will attach a photo of that book here. It's a companion book to Of Flames and Fury. It's like a standalone set in the same exact world, and I liked Of Flames and Fury a lot more. This one I enjoyed, but I don't think I liked it as much. So basically you have a character whose sister passed away, and she's really determined, and she's kind of like a princess or like an elevated person in the society, and she really wants to figure out what happened to her sister. And then you have a thief that is trying to steal things from the like leaders, and they're kind of forced to work together to solve like what happened to both of their things. And you get a lot of world building and development in this story, but this world felt very different from Of Flames and Fury. And there was a romance triangle in here that I think felt a little bit insta-love to me at moments, which is not always my favorite. It was supposed to be hate some more, but it kind of didn't come across that way. There's also LGBTQ plus representation in here, which I did really like. I didn't like it as much as the first book in the series, and I missed that world a lot, but I had a fun time with it. I gave it 3.75 stars, rounded up to 4 on Goodreads, but I just missed feeling connected to the characters, and that's why I only gave it that rating. But I did have a fun time with it. And the next book I picked up was Kissed by the Gods by Katie Brogan. This is a book that everyone's been talking about, and it was on my TBR when I picked it. I gave this book 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed this story. I think that I had a fun time, but I think there was a little bit of pacing off in the story, and that is why I didn't give it a full 5 stars. I think that as a reader, we really were took along for this magic system, and I like that. I also did like our main character, and I think that there was a lot of predictable elements in the story. There was also some wild twists at the end that I did not see coming. I think that I want to go back and read the novella that's tied into the story because I think it will help me with the world building. But basically you have a main character, and basically in this world, like when you become 18, your men are taken from you, and her older brother was taken and was killed, and they're gonna get ready for her older brother to be taken, and things kind of go from there. And she has powers, and she basically killed everyone in her house but her older brother and her younger brother. And then she's caught by someone called an Altor, separated from her brothers and taken to this magical academy where she's taught to be an Altor. She's the only female Altor. She's the only one from this land, so it's very, very like, you know, like, oh my god, what is happening? Like, why is she doing this? But there's also a lot of twists and turns along the way, and you meet a lot of side characters that I really grew to love. There's also some familiars in here that were like magical creatures that I really liked. I think the pacing was a little bit off, but for me, I could not put this book down. So that's why I gave it a 4.5 stars. I think that the pacing and the connection was a little bit off at some points, but I really like this book. I gave it 4.5 stars, and I'm really excited to read the prequel in the series. And the next book I read was another recent purchase, and that is Dungeon Crawler Carl, the graphic novel. I wanted to read this story to see if I was interested enough to pick up the audiobook, because sometimes when I read stuff like this, it's like, it's not my taste at all. This I really did like. I think I'm definitely going to pick up the audiobook at some point. I might make it put it on one of my spinner wheels for a vlog I'm doing next week. But yeah, I like this. It basically follows a main character that there's an apocalypse. If you're inside, you die. If you're outside, you survive. He has to go outside to get his cat, and then he's set through this video game like scenario, and he has a cat with him, and I liked it. I thought it was really, really fun. Once we got to the end, I got a little bit bored, but I think the audiobook would help with that, so that's why I do want to keep this one as well. So that is why it is on this list, and why I read it. I gave it 3.75 stars. Let me make sure that all my books are organized so I know what I'm doing with them. Sorry, I just want to make sure that they were all organized. Okay. Okay. And the next thing I read was an audiobook, and that was Into the Fading Twilight by Catherine Cowles. I gave this book 5 stars. I will put this book over here. Into the Starlight Grove series. This follows Nova. If you don't know anything about this series, book 1 had Bray trying to find her best friend. Her best friend was missing for a year. This is Nova's story, so I'll let you guys put those pieces together. This book had a lot of trauma in this book, like a lot of trauma healing, but basically Nova was missing for a year, and she's kind of dealing with the after effects of being back, and it actually was a really realistic look about what happens when you come back from being away for a year. The social dynamics, the physical dynamics, and there was also the lead, like a leading mystery kind of in it, because obviously it's romantic suspense, but you have our male lead is I wouldn't say he's a cop, but he works with like the forest industry. He has a little girl, and he is also the son of a serial killer, which is where like a lot of his trauma comes from, and they really have to work together, and it's just a very, very beautiful story of healing for both of them. And I really did like this book. I gave the book 5 stars. There was a twist in this book that I did not see coming, and I really fell hard for the twist. Like I was like, oh my god, that is not, like that cannot be happening, but it totally did. And it just was a lot of, you really grew to love these characters throughout the story, but you also had to see that they were dealing with a lot. So that's why I gave this book 5 stars, and I really am excited to see what the next book is. I would say that this is the series of hers that you really do need to read in order, because every book kind of leads into the other one. The next book is going to be a very, very fun trope that I don't think I've ever really read before, so I'm really excited for that. And that comes out in October. And the next book I listened to was Dissection of a Murderer by Joe Murray. I gave this book 4.5 stars. Like, I really like this book. Basically, this is a legal thriller following a main character named Leela Reynolds, and she winds up having to defend somebody in the English court system. I think this book did a really good job of explaining the English law system to someone who's not English. I'm obviously American. And the person she's going against is her husband. She has a connection to her defendant. She kind of helped him out before. Her defendant won't talk, and she has to kind of come up with a defense without his help. And things kind of go from there. It was a wild read. Like, this book was wild. I gave it 4.5 stars. I actually have it when I gave 4.5 stars as well. But I really do like listening to thrillers in the summer. They're very, very motivating to like get myself moving. So I really like this. I love Joe Murray. There was a lot of twists and turns that I did not see coming, but I did feel a little bit removed from the characters in this story. So I don't think it's going to get a full 5 stars, but there was a lot in this story that I did like, and that's why I gave it such a high rating. And the next book I read was another e-arc. I've really been doing good on my e-arcs, which is really, really good. I read Immortal Rose by Alexandra Bracken, and I gave this book 4.5 stars for review. This is a book that comes out in August or September. I can't remember. I think it might be August, but it might be the fairy loot for September. One of those. But I really did like this story. I gave it 4.25 stars, 4.5 stars for review, and I will attach a photo of that book here. you like Bridgerton, I think you will like the story. Alexandra Bracken is one of my favorite authors of all time, so I was so happy to see her coming out with a new book and giving a new audience a shot. She's normally wrote YA or middle grade. So basically you have a main character who could basically make perfumes, and she's kind of not been allowed to learn on her family line because she's kind of like her mom kind of did some bad things and her family like kind of just owned her, but she's the line of this inheritance. And when the old man dies in this family, she's kind of the only person left that can make this like elixir and tonic, because basically the king has been poisoned and she's the only one that can save it. And there is a main character teams up with another main character, the romance in the story, and it's just a very, very well crafted read. It's a book that I definitely want to reread at like a slower pace. I felt a little bit rushed reading it this way, but I liked it quite a bit. I love Alexandra Bracken's writing style. She writes such a good cast of characters that is quite like found family-esque. There was a lot of twists and turns that I didn't see coming, and I just felt like the story was a little bit long for me when I was reading it. But I also think because it was very, very Bridgerton-esque, it was very, very romantic-esque, I maybe should have listened to it. So maybe it was a right book, wrong format type of situation. But I really loved it. It was a very, very engaging read. Like, I was very, very captivated. The plot wasn't the issue. The characters were super interesting. But I really am excited for book 2, and I'm excited to reread book 1, which is very exciting. And the next book that I read was one of my first YA romances of the fall, and that is A Season for Falling by Kate O'Shaughnessy. This is an ALA work that I picked up when I was there, and I gave this book 5 stars. This book was delightful. Basically, you follow a main character, Claire, who was a former child star, and her dad was her manager. Things did not go that well. I will say that. It was a bad experience for her. And after that, she kind of decided to go, stop acting, go with her mom and brother to Connecticut and kind of just be a normal person. She kind of changed her name, kind of changed her identity, so no one knows who she is. She's living her best life, a little bit like protective of herself. She doesn't want anyone to know who she was because there was a lot of like adult like pressure when she was a child star. And then her former best friend comes to town. He's still an actor who's doing a movie set at like a school around a murder that happened in her small town, and he's gonna be acting, and he asks her for how to be a teen lessons, and that's where we go. It's a very, very beautiful story. A lot about self-discovery for both of them. I will say this book is only from Claire's point of view, but I feel like you do learn a lot of the main characters quite a bit. There's also trans representation of a side character in here, a lot of family dynamics, a lot of like last year of high school vibes, and I really like this book. I gave a book 5 stars, and it was so fun. So if you're looking for a fall romance, I would definitely pick this one up when it comes out in October, and I just had a great time with this book. It put a smile on my face for sure. And then the last 2 books I read were listenings, and they are very, very similar vibes. So I finally got around to reading Yesteryear by Clara Burke. I kept like getting the hold and putting it on hold, but this book was wild. I'll be very honest. If I did not know that this had like a big twist, I probably would have DNF'd it because I despise the main character. Like, I hated her. And that is why I very rarely read thrillers. I did read like 3 thrillers this month, and this is probably the season that I will read the most just because I'm traveling and like, it's just quick reads. I've also been doing a lot of walking, and they're very, very motivating to keep walking. I really hated her, and I think that that's kind of the point in the story. But basically, you follow a main character, like a trad wife influencer, and you kind of start the book with her in her present life. She like turns off the camera, she has nanny, she has assistants, yada yada yada, and a lot of stuff is happening in that life. And then like the next chapter, she's kind of throwback into the past. And that's all I'm gonna say. Just kind of figure out what's happened, how is she there back in the past, what is really going on, and things go from there. There is a pretty big twist at the end of the story. I don't want to give it away because I feel like you may get there yourself. I did not get there myself, but you may get there yourself, so I don't want to give it away too much. But I did love the way the story was written. I love the plot. I hated the character. So I felt like for me, I was hate reading it a little bit. I felt like when I was reading In My Dreams of Hold a Knife by Ashley Winston. So I only gave this book 4 stars, but I loved her writing. And I think that she did a very good job making me hate this character. I think that was kind of the point. But it definitely wasn't a book that I liked. I like what the author did, but I don't think I like the book. That's why I only gave it 4 stars. But I am happy that I read it. And the last thing I listened to in this half of the month was The Housewife by Natalie Borelli, and I will attach a photo of that book here. It's a fun popcorn thriller, and I like this. I gave this book 4.5 stars, the same with Dissection of a Murderer. If I had to choose, I might actually say I like The Housewife a little bit more, so maybe 4.75 stars. I really did like that one. This one, it follows a main character who was in jail. She gets out of jail and she realizes that her sister has been killed. Her sister committed suicide, and she does not think her sister committed suicide. She's very, very suspicious of that. And she winds up kind of marrying her sister's former husband to kind of uncover what has happened. She is an unhinged character. She does a lot of questionable things. She really is determined to figure out what happened to her sister. And it is a very bonkers thriller set in like a very like housewife-y environment. I really did enjoy it. I don't think it's like a new favorite, but I had a fun time with this book. I did not want to stop listening to it, and that's the mark of a good thriller for me. So those are all the books that I listened to in the first half of the month. If I had to say, well, okay, so these 2 books are probably going to get donated to a friend of mine because I'm probably not going to read them again. This is probably going to get sold on Pango. If you want, I'll probably sell this at like the end of the month. This is going to go in my classroom. This is going to have to go back to the library because it's a library book. And then the 3 that I'm currently keeping is Change of Plans by Sarah Dessen because she sent it to me. A Season for Falling because it is a 5-star read. And also Kissed by the Gods by Katie Rogan. So those are the books that I'm going to keep. I will talk to you guys for my next video. Bye, book friends.